So today we're gonna make a great classical French onion soup. And we're gonna do yellow onion, we're gonna do red onion, everything else what we're gonna do with this. And how to make an onion soup that doesn't have to be made with a beef stock. You can have exceptional results, a delicious soup, full of flavor with vegetable stock or water, with a focus on the onion flavor. And for the cheese, if you really want to keep it vegan and vegetarian, you have some great cheeses out there that are made based on soy and other products. And so again, this is the typical recipe that you really can make it both for the meat lover, the carnivore as they call them, or people that want to stay away from anything that has to do with animal product. So without further ado, let us get started and have fun making a great classical French onion soup. What makes a good onion soup is a lot of onion, well caramelized, where the sugar in the onion under high heat will caramelize and give that delicious flavor to the soup. Here we are. I got 2 of those onions here. We slice the onion in half this way, and then you start slicing it nice and thin, straight down. Notice how I hold my finger, by the way. The blade is touching a knuckle. This way there's no chance, and it's sliding on the knuckle. There's no chance I catch my finger. So it's a little trick that you may want to work on, and at first it feels awkward, but this is the safe way that professionals use to use a chef knife and to slice product without cutting into their fingers. So again, see the knuckle, the blade is sliding on the knuckle. You cannot catch your nails. You cannot catch the tip of your finger. Okay, and then you just back off, back, very gently. And once you get to the point where it becomes more difficult to hold because it becomes narrower, you just take the onion, turn it sideways, and start again. And this way you got your onions sliced fairly thin. They will brown evenly and cook evenly. I'm turning it again so it doesn't tip over until you are done. And here you are, half an onion done. So again, I'm gonna cut it through the axes here. You may want to remove a little bit of this here. This is a little tougher. You want to get rid of this. I'm cutting it again in half. Better control. Of course, you could slice it like this. I like to cut it in quarters, if you will, and then get started this way. Again, look at the knuckles, okay? The blade following the knuckles, very important. Keep going until the piece may not be stable enough. Turn it the other way, so it's got a bit more of the base, and then finish it. So you see how fairly nice and even they are sliced in thickness, so they will cook evenly. That method can be used to slice anything. Slice mushrooms, just follow the knuckles, slide, follow the knuckles, keep those fingers out of the way. Red onion, yellow onion. By the way, in this recipe I use more yellow onion than the red, but it also depends what product you have on hand. Don't be afraid to switch things around. This one is smaller, so I'm gonna show you. I don't cut it in quarters. And I grab it. You see sometimes the knife, especially if it's not all that sharp, it may want to slip a little bit at the end when you do it that way. And I'm not saying that knife is not sharp. It's fairly sharp actually. Perhaps down the road, depending on what kind of demand I have, I may show you how to sharpen knives for those who are interested. This is why it's always a good idea to subscribe and then let me know what you are interested in. This way I can tailor the upcoming videos to my audience. Voila. So of course I'm not going to demonstrate all the onions. The rest I already have it pre-sliced. And then we're gonna get into the cooking process. So at this point, I'm gonna start doing what we call batch cooking. I will preheat the fairly large base. I made a large batch of onion, and I'm gonna make a base and then turn some into the soup. You just follow your recipe and you will be fine. Even with your recipe, you may want to do a couple of batches. Maybe 2 batches should be enough. You do not want your onion to be very thick in the bottom of the pan you're using. I've preheated the pot, and then add a little bit of canola oil. Let it heat a little bit, and I'm gonna start adding the onion. But you should hear a little bit sizzling as it hits the bottom of the pan. Let's run a test here. It's always a good thing to do. You take a little piece of your product and throw it in there. I'm gonna wait a minute. It's still not searing the way I want it. It's getting there. And I'm gonna add a batch of that onion. You hear that sizzling? That's what we're looking for. So we're gonna go easy at first and see if our batch can be a little larger according to how this is gonna go. Again, resist the temptation to put too much at a time. We got about a 1/4 inch onion in the bottom. Let it sear nicely. The burner is at full blast. Now this is, again, remember, it is a home burner, so it is not as large and as it doesn't have the output in BTU that a commercial kitchen will have. So that limits also the size of batch you can do. So you're going to do, again, you may have to do for the same amount, a few more batches. Notice it starts browning a little bit, and notice also that I do not cover. I have the lid standing nearby, but I'm not covering because I want that steam to escape. I don't want too much moisture in there. I want to dry the onion, and that's how I'm going to get that caramelization. There is natural sugar in the onion. I'm releasing this way, releasing the natural sugar of the onion. Now I do not add sugar to my onion soup. A lot of people will do so to increase the caramelization. I do not believe in that. Actually, you need to try to cook as healthy as you can, as naturally as you can. And we have already way too much sugar in our foods. So it does take time. Good cooking takes some time, but it is not complicated as long as you follow a few simple rules. I try to keep it simple. I'm going to use salt, pepper, bay leaf, thyme. I'm going to use a mixture of dry herb of Provence, but you could just use a little bit of thyme and the bay leaf, and that's fine. And I will, which is optional, I will add a little bit of sherry. Sherry from product of Spain, or you could use a local product, a dry sherry, a little bit, but you do not have to have that. Look at that browning. If you're concerned about someone having a little bit of sherry in there, and it's just for flavor, then you can skip that step. Again, what we're gonna push here is the flavor of the caramelized onion. That's gonna make it, and a lot of it, that's gonna make a rich soup and flavorful. You can see some caramelization happening, and what you're witnessing here is the concept of batch cooking. Batch cooking could be also when you're searing meat, when you want to sear meat. You don't want to put too much too fast into, you just want one layer in the bottom of the pan with the fat that you are using, and sear it, and then pull it out of the pan and sear another batch. Do that a few times. And then after that, you can continue with the process. Batch cooking, searing, browning. All these are important concepts to learn and to understand. Pulling some recipes from the internet or various sources, a lot of time they may not give you these details. So if you learn those basic concepts, you will be a better cook, a better chef, because you can take as a base for some basic ideas something from anywhere, from books, from internet, and then interpret it and fill in the missing procedure parts and come up and then make some adjustments and come up with some delicious product. Now we're getting some serious browning. You see it? And of course, I can smell it. You cannot at this point, but you will when you do your batch. See also how the product is shrinking. You see the bottom of the pot. So the next batch, I'm going to attempt to put a little bit thicker of a layer in there. But again, I don't want to be tempted to put too much too fast, or I may ruin the project. Let caramelization with the onion, with a lot of product, plus well caramelized. This is what's going to make your soup a delicious onion soup. So you don't over stir it, just allow it to caramelize, then turn it over, stir it. Give the fire a chance to do its thing. Now, if you're gonna walk away from it, just set your timer on a couple of minutes. Very easy to walk away from it and burn the entire thing. Caramelized is not burn. Burn will give you a bitter taste, acrid taste, and it will ruin the product. Stay with it. You see while we slice this nice and evenly. It's cooking fairly nice and evenly. We are getting close here. So now we are there. That's caramelizing out. I'm gonna remove the first batch and then go to, I turn off the heat. It's pretty hot. Turn off the heat. While I'm doing the switch, I'm gonna pull out this first batch, add a little bit of oil, and start the second batch. Now you see how caramelized that is, and it smells wonderful. You're gonna find out it takes a lot of onion to make a batch of soup. This is an onion soup, your main ingredient. So here it is. I'm gonna add a little oil and restart the heat and start batch number 2. The pot is nice and hot, so you don't have to wait. I'm going to increase the amount a little bit from what I've learned from the first batch, but not overdoing it. So maybe I have about a inch thick batch here. We're going to see how well that goes. So while I'm batch caramelizing the onion next to me, you can hear the sizzling. I'm going to grate some cheese. If you're going to use cheese when you serve your onion soup, it will be lacto-vegetarian, no longer vegan. However, you could use a vegan mozzarella, and that would still keep your dish vegan. So here I'm using some Swiss cheese, and look how I grate the cheese. I just put it on a flat surface here in the bowl to pick up the cheese to really get good support, and then I really just use gravity to push down. That's the easiest way to grate cheese. And I have a minimum effort, and that's a good way to do this, especially if you're going to do a lot of grating. And those box graters are great. They got different sides depending on what you want to grate. This is probably the one I use the most. I'm going to make enough cheese for 2 servings. You could also use thin slices of cheese on top of the croutons. Make sure you don't get too distracted and still keep stirring your onion next to you. Cheese is ready. For the croutons, I'm going to use some croutons that I had done for a salad earlier. Just basic croutons, browning nicely. The bottom of the pan gets dark, so the product is not burning. Just caramelizing. So it looks like it's working well, adding a little bit thicker batch. So again, I want to get it nice and drier and caramelized, and soon I'm going to start the process again. When I get enough of my base of onion, I will start showing you the rest of the process for that soup. Now we got the amount of caramelized onion from your recipe. I'm going to move them to a different pot. Look at this. Like this, nice and brown. I'm going to add the water. Again, if you were not concerned about doing it with the vegan way, vegetarian way, you could use a rich stock if you wanted to. It's up to you. It's your kitchen. But add the water. Taking shape. Lots of onion. The heat is on. Now I'm going to start adding some flavoring agent. I have not added anything yet. I'm going to add the bay leaf, black pepper, the Provence, cute little gift package that I got from my family, one of our latest trip in France. You could also add a bouquet garni in there, but this is just fine like this. And the Herbe de Provence got thyme in it, that's why I like to use that. I've not added the salt yet. If you were to add a stock or a base to make a stock with the water, be careful. Remember that those bases, most of them, unless you ask for a low sodium one, they hold a lot of salt. With the water, you don't have to worry. You know exactly where you stop. Okay, now I'm gonna start adding some salt. Kosher salt or any sea salt, your favorite salt. Whenever salting something, be careful. You can always add salt, you cannot take it away. Don't over season. Stirring, and then we need to blend all these flavors, allow the time to get the herbs to release their flavor, the bay leaf to release its flavor. Now the soup is boiling. I reduce the heat. Once it's come to a boil, you want to reduce the heat. Let all these flavor blend. Now, if I wanted to have a thicker soup, a little bit thicker, before I added the liquid, I could have added a little bit, sprinkled a little bit of flour, 2 tablespoons of flour, and mix it in the caramelized onion, and then add the liquid. I would have a liquid that would be just a little thicker, but you don't want to overdo it. I decided to keep the texture just with the onion and the liquid, and let the onion itself do just enough thickening. So that makes a flavorful but a little bit of a lighter soup. Remember, you're going to have the croutons on top, and you're going to have the cheese, whatever cheese you decide to have. So that will thicken again a little bit. So we're going to let it simmer for a good 20 minutes, and we should be ready to go. Now that we're getting closer, as you can see, it looks wonderful. Lots of onion, looks like an onion soup. We are gonna adjust the seasoning. Don't forget, if you're cooking anything else on the side, don't forget to take care of that as well. Generally in kitchens, you're gonna be working on a few dishes at the same time. So now, time to test it. I've got use a tasting spoon. This is, I'm in my kitchen, so I'm going to use a teaspoon. Now, it does need salt, and I'm going to add the sherry as well. Remember, as I said, I purposely put less salt than it was needed, so that it won't get overly salty. So the salt, and I'm going to add over the sherry. There we go, the backbone. Again, this is not, you do not have to add any sherry to it. Blend it in, and then I will test it again with a clean spoon, but make sure it's all well mixed in before you test it again. Much better. Add that salt. That should do it. Should do it. So let the flavor blend in for a little bit longer, and we'll be able to start plating the soup in soup crock, and that will be the next part of the demo. So after adjusting the seasoning, you can preheat your onion soup crock, or you could use some bowl. The nice thing about the onion soup crock is that you got handles. If you do not have handles in your pot, in your serving dishes, just put them on a tray, cookie tray or some sort of a tray, oven proof, and then put them on the broiler. The broiler is the heat from above that falls onto the cheese and melt the cheese. So now let's pour the soup in the containers. Let's see what we can do here. Move the soup up here and grab the soup. See how thick it is by the onion. That's an onion soup. So this is what makes the rich soup and the flavor, those caramelized onions. So bring it up to that level. You want to make sure that the croutons and cheese will be right on top, so that it picks up the heat from the broiler. In the industry, we have a broiler that's called a salamander, and the heat falls from the top to brown. Now try to catch your bay leaves. You don't want to have the bay leaf in the dish. It's not edible. It's just release the flavor and it's done. So here we are. We're gonna add the croutons. Again, it could be 2 slices of French bread or baguette that you put side by side, and then the cheese on top, but croutons work well, small croutons. So you put them on top there. It will add crunch flavor to the dish. Pretty much give you a whole meal deal. And a generous amount of cheese. Again, that could be 2 thin slices. I am preheating the broiler. It's on. And we're going to gratinate those. And again, when you do the gratinate, it is not melted cheese. It is brown on top cheese. So it has to brown. So you have a caramelization. I've seen too much so-called gratinate dish where the cheese is just melted. This is not right. You do not achieve all the flavor by just melting the cheese. You need the brown on top. Just like you brown your onion for more flavor, you caramelize. Now you caramelize the top of your cheese. These are all these little differences that makes a big difference in fine cooking. I'm gonna move the soup out of here and I'm gonna place those 2 in the broiler. I'm gonna take the camera with me. In the oven under the broiler. Here under the broiler. Heat's coming down from the top. You see it? There we go, the heat coming down from the top of the broiler. And here they come, brown on top. Au gratin or gratiné. Yummy. Look at these colors. Doesn't look scrumptious. Lacto-vegetarian, but you can turn them into vegan French classical onion soup. Bon appétit, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share.